Hey everybody, welcome back to my coverage of the PogChamps 3 tournament. This is Mr. Beast versus CodeMiko, the second to last match in Group D and also the second to last match of the entire group stage. So both players very new to chess. Mr. Beast and CodeMiko, they only learned chess a couple months ago. Mr. Beast is the rating favorite, but with ratings this low, anything could happen. Mr. Beast and CodeMiko, both of them will be going to the consolation bracket. This match will not change that, but this will just determine the seeding for that consolation bracket. So let's see how the players played. CodeMiko has the white pieces for the first game, and she goes for e4. We have d5 from Mr. Beast, and he goes for the Scandinavian defense, as we've seen in previous matches from him. We have e takes d5 and queen takes d5 from Mr. Beast. d4 and now queen a5. Both players playing the Scandinavian defense very well so far. We have c3 from CodeMiko, and here bishop d2, simply gaining another tempo on the queen, is playable, but c3 is also a totally fine move. We have knight f6 from Mr. Beast, knight a3 from CodeMiko, and in this position, knight a3 is actually not too bad of a move, but generally you want to be developing your pieces toward the center. So in order for knight a3 to be a good move here, you have to recognize that you're eventually going to reroute this knight to c2 or even c4 potentially. But you just have to realize that your knight shouldn't stay on a3 here. So for that, maybe it's not the best move for CodeMiko. Maybe she should have just developed this bishop somewhere or a different knight so that she could bring this knight to d2 later. But we have knight to a3. Which once again is a fine move. We have knight c6 from Mr. Beast and now bishop b5, pinning that knight. We have a6 now from Mr. Beast, kicking that bishop away, and bishop to c4 from CodeMiko. Here, you should really trade this bishop for this knight, because if you don't, you are basically giving black this a6 move for free. And also, when you trade this bishop, you are doubling black's pawns, so black would not want to then castle queenside, which black usually likes to do in the Scandinavian. Black would have to castle kingside. White is also probably going to be castling kingside this game, and white could take advantage of the doubled pawn structure later in the game, after taking this knight, of course. But we have bishop c4 from CodeMiko, which is only a small inaccuracy, so that's okay. We have bishop e6 from Mr. Beast, and this is definitely at least a positional mistake, because it allows now bishop takes e6, and after f takes e6, you've weakened this diagonal. White can't take advantage of it right now, but maybe later in the game. And also you have now double isolated pawns in the center, which are going to be very weak and hard to defend later in the game. And also the center is totally open, so these are definitely huge targets, especially with this half-open e-file. So CodeMiko definitely should have gone for this, and Mr. Beast definitely should not have allowed this, but she does not go for it. Instead, we have b4 now attacking this queen, and now this gives Mr. Beast the chance to play queen f5, defending the bishop, so he would no longer have to accept those double pawns. But the queen has a few other squares as well. The queen can move to b6, which is a very natural square, or also h5, so where will the queen move? That's the question. Mr. Beast does find queen to f5, so CodeMiko has missed her chance to double Mr. Beast's pawns. We have knight f3, continuing development, and castles from Mr. Beast. Pretty good chess overall so far. The players have done a pretty good job of developing their pieces, and hopefully CodeMiko will castle soon. And CodeMiko does castle. She castles right here, and now we have an exchange of these bishops. Bishop takes c4 and knight takes c4. And now we have b5 from Mr. Beast, and this is definitely a mistake. It's a very natural move to play because you're attacking the knight, and so it's just natural because of that. But you're just making your king very weak. Not only that, but you're also making this a6 pawn backwards, and this c pawn is actually technically backwards as well. So you're just creating a lot of weaknesses, and even though you're attacking this knight right now, you will pay for these weaknesses later in the game. So we'll just have to see if that affects Mr. Beast in any way. But first, CodeMiko has to move her knight, so she will. She plays knight c to e5, and this does allow knight takes e5. And here you have to take with the knight because if you take with the pawn, then your queen hangs. So this pawn is pinned. By the way, back here, instead of b4 for Mr. Beast, a better move would have simply been e5, simply getting ready to develop this bishop and striking in the center. Once again, this pawn cannot take. So even though white may look like they have 1, 2, 3 attackers and black only has 2 defenders, this pawn is not really an attacker. So you can't really win a pawn here as white. Or even if you can, maybe black can use the open e file as sort of some counterplay. But anyway, yeah, e5 would have been a better move here from Mr. Beast. But we have b5 and knight c to e5 from CodeMiko. So knight takes e5, and will CodeMiko take with the knight or with the pawn now? She does take with the pawn, which is not the correct move. And yeah, this just simply hangs the queen. But now, will Mr. Beast see it, or will he move his knight, which is now attacked? Mr. Beast does see the hanging queen, and he plays rook takes d1. And yes, this is just terrible from CodeMiko, or terrible for CodeMiko, because now you can't even take this knight because you taking the rook is better. So CodeMiko does take this rook, which is definitely good, and Mr. Beast saves his knight with knight to d7. And here CodeMiko plays h4, which is definitely not a move you want to be playing. Much better would have simply been, developing this bishop, or you could even play a move like a4, just trying to rip open what's left of black's king safety and try to get counterplay of black's king as soon as possible. So either of these moves would have been better than h4, which doesn't do anything and simply weakens the white king. But we have h4 and now g6 from Mr. Beast, just looking to develop this dark squared bishop. We have now bishop e3 from CodeMiko, and Mr. Beast develops that dark squared bishop with bishop g7, now also attacking this pawn. He could have taken it on the previous move, but bishop g7, just getting that last piece into the game is fine as well. We have now rook d5 from CodeMiko defending that pawn, but Mr. Beast can still take it. However, it might be a little dangerous because now you would be stepping into a pin if you take this. However, Mr. Beast decides it's worth the risk, and he goes for knight takes e5. And this is fine. You're not really going to be running into any tactics here as black, so it is okay to take this pawn. We have knight takes e5 and bishop takes e5, and now you just have to make sure you don't move your bishop. So after rook a to d1 from CodeMiko, just getting her rooks on the open file, definitely very principled from her. Obviously, the position is still losing because you're down a rook for a queen, but this is definitely a good way to try to get some counterplay. And yeah, here's Mr. Beast. You just have to get out of this pin, so a move like queen to e4 would be perfectly fine. Or also a move like queen to g4 is a little bit tricky. You can hang your bishop, but the rook can't take because the rook on d1 would hang. This is a little fancy, though, because white can play f3. You can't not take this hanging h4 pawn now, because now you do hang your bishop since you are no longer attacking this rook. Yeah, queen e4 would have just been the simplest move here from Mr. Beast, just getting out of that pin. But instead, we have bishop takes c3, a horrible blunder by Mr. Beast, and this does hang the queen. So after rook takes f5 and g takes f5, this still would be better for black because black is up 2 pawns. So black would still win this game with perfect play, but it's definitely not as winning as it was a couple moves ago for Mr. Beast. However, Miko does not go for this rook takes f5. Here she actually wanted to play rook d8 check and trade rooks. And I mean, rook d8 would actually just be terrible because it would hang a rook. And then she wanted to go for this bishop g5 move and pressure this e7 pawn. That's what she was thinking. However, she mouse slipped the move rook to e5. She didn't even see that this queen was hanging, so she was really upset when she mouse slipped this rook to e5 move. But the funny thing is, if she had mouse slipped one square further, she would have actually made the best move and been right back into this game. So yeah, CodeMiko mouse slips rook to e5, but the move she wanted to play, rook to d8, is equally as bad. So Mr. Beast sighs a sigh of relief and does take this rook with queen takes e5, and now we have f4 from CodeMiko. So Mr. Beast is up a queen. Let's see how he converts this. F4 also simply hangs this bishop, so will Mr. Beast see? Yes, he does. He plays queen takes e3 with check. We have king h2 and now rook d8. just looking to trade off CodeMiko's last piece. And CodeMiko goes into this voluntarily with rook takes d8 check. We have king takes d8 and now a4 from CodeMiko. B takes a4 and now Mr. Beast is going to make another queen here. We have f5 and g takes f5. Mr. Beast just cleaning up all of CodeMiko's pawns. He just has to make sure he doesn't stalemate. We have h4 and now bishop takes b4. h6 and queen takes h6, just cleaning up the last of those pawns. King g1 and now a3. Mr. Beast is going to make another queen. We have king f1 and now a2 from Mr. Beast. King e2 and Mr. Beast makes a new queen. a1 equals queen. We have g3 and now queen to a3. Mr. Beast going for this ladder mate, cutting off the king, and he'll bring his second queen in and get the ladder mate. We have king f2 and now queen h2 check. King f1 and Mr. Beast checkmates with queen to a1. There are no stalemates because CodeMiko still has this g-pawn. Actually, the one stalemate would have been queen a takes g3. This would be stalemate, but Mr. Beast doesn't go for this. He instead goes for queen a1, and this is checkmate. So Mr. Beast takes the first game. He was the favorite. He did get in a lot of time pressure this game. Mr. Beast probably one of the worst performing competitors under time pressure. He does get into that time pressure a lot and doesn't perform very well, but he managed to pull out the win anyway. So I don't think I have anything else to say about this game or this match. Both players played very well in the opening. Just unfortunate that CodeMiko hung that queen in the middle game. So I don't think I have anything else to say about this game or this match. So you can check out my PogChamps 3 playlist up there and check out the next game in the match on the left side of the screen. So we'll see if CodeMiko can take us to a tiebreaker or if Mr. Beast will get the shutout. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Love you guys.